Forrester got his start as a writer for The Ben Stiller Show. He has written for The Simpsons, King of the Hill, Late Night with Conan O'Brien, and Mr. Show. He's also currently a writer for The Office on NBC, where he also directed 2 of its worst episodes. Not my words. Not my words. Not my words, everyone. Brent Forrester!
Kind of mean there at the end, I thought. I'm a guest, and they threw that down. Great show, man. I always love this show so much. I love this audience. It's such a smart audience that would come out and see topical comedy like this. I always wonder what I can contribute to your collective brains out there. So follow this, if you will. This is something I've been thinking about a lot recently. I grew up in Malibu. And there were 2 things that, as a kid growing up in Malibu, you were required to do. One of them was you had to surf, which was really horrible. Surfing is a terrible sport. It's frightening, it's cold, you have to get up really early in the morning. No one teaches you to do it except your peers, and they don't really teach you very well. But you had to do that. That was part of growing up in Malibu. And the other thing was you pretty much had to smoke weed. It was essential to your peer status. It was another thing I hated. But you know, I'm a hardworking guy and I applied myself. And over time I was able to do it. And you know, I carried this with me my whole life. Especially when I started to get a writing career, I found that pot had this sort of use for me as a comedy writer. I was never a funny person growing up. Nobody ever said, "Oh, Brent's a funny guy." I just did it with hard work and trying to learn from other people. But the thing that would get me always was to be funny on a deadline was always very difficult for me, very anxiety producing. And I found that what weed would do was it would give me the feeling of brilliance. Without the actual brilliance. Don't get me wrong. Nobody gets smarter with weed. But it would get me to write because I would feel for, you know, whatever, half an hour or something like I had something going on. And so I would just, you know, all through my writing career, I would use weed to get me through that period of anxiety, which was, you know, basically fine. But, you know, I grew up, I'm married now, I have a kid. And it was especially having a kid, I started to feel lame about smoking pot. I kind of felt just like, this is inconsistent with my image of myself as a parent. You know, it doesn't seem like a dad should be smoking weed. And it began to weigh on me quite heavily. About a year ago, I started going to a therapist, a very particular therapist. If you ever have the opportunity to go to Mona Miller, I highly recommend it. Mona Miller. She's an unlicensed therapist. I always refer to her. Mona Miller, I always refer to her as Mona Miller, unlicensed therapist to the stars. She's a total character. She nothing about her says therapist. She wears these white Ugg boots with like fur coming off them all the way down to the floor, the most untherapeutic footwear you could possibly imagine. She'll talk through the whole session unless you just stop her. You know, she's no frickin' Sigmund Freud with a pipe. She works with people like me and you, but also with people in prisons and like gang members, and she has an ethic. Anybody who comes to be her client, she demands total sobriety of these people. And so suddenly I found myself going to this woman. She said, "Do you drink beer?" "Yeah, sure." "Smoke weed?" "Yeah." She said, no more, you can't do that anymore. And so I said, "Okay, I'll quit." But then week after week, I wouldn't quit. And so, you know, after about 6 weeks of going to Mona and her saying, "If you quit doing these things," I said, "No." And she said, "All right, I want you to go to 12-step meetings." Now, this to me, at first I thought, this is crazy. How can I go to 12-step meetings? I haven't had any kind of disastrous meltdown with drugs and alcohol. But she said the 12-step meetings, anybody who's been to these knows this, they don't measure addiction by how much you use. They measure it by how many days you've gone since your last usage. So if you've had a beer in the last week, you are less sober than a guy who fucking lost his marriage a year ago because went down the tubes. You basically, if you drink beer or smoke weed at all, you have a passport into the fascinating world of 12-step. And once I realized this, I found it just hypnotically attractive. Now, this is my personality. I fucking love this kind of thing where you can enter into a new world. I joined the Elks Club at one point. I literally did. 5 years ago, I just found, why not join the Elks Club? This will be really interesting. I wanted to know what the secret hello sign was for the Elks. I'll show you what it is, by the way, because I learned. Don't tell anybody. The secret hello sign for the Elks is literally this. It is the least secret thing you could possibly do. I swear to God, that is how elks treat each other, like a little secret this. So I took the same attitude towards the 12-step thing, and I said, I had the choice. I can go anywhere. AA, MA, Marijuana Anonymous. That one seemed really like the one to go to me. It's just like, there's only like 2 MA meetings in the entire West Side. There's 15 AA meetings a day within a mile of my house. There's only 2 on the whole West Side. It seemed kind of exclusive. It's fantastic. The drama alone of going to a 12-step meeting, I recommend this for anybody. When you go, all the people in the meeting, they go there every week. So when you come in, they know you're a newcomer. And the drama of walking in is really heavy. It's kind of a theatrical experience. And it's all directed towards the newcomer to keep him there and impress him and bring him into 12-step. It's extremely warm and friendly. People just give you their card and their email instantly. If you have no friends, become an alcoholic. You will suddenly have the greatest network of buddies in the world. And there's also something very cool and heavy going on there. The alcoholics of the 1920s, AA was founded by a guy named Bill Wilson in the 1920s. There was no cure for alcoholism at that time. There was psychiatry and they would prescribe drugs. They could not cure alcoholism. This guy, Bill Wilson, figured out the key was for people to sit down together who were also alcoholics, admitted to each other with something called rigorous honesty, and then when they eliminated shame that way, they were able to get beyond it. That and a certain kind of spirituality seems to be the cure. Anyway, it's been an interesting adventure. I recommend it to everybody. The one thing I will leave you with is this. If you ever do this, like I did, start going to 12-step meetings, the reaction of your friends is fascinating. Because all of my friends drink more and smoke more weed than I ever did in my life. And so for me to be the one stepping into 12-step is, it's kind of controversial for them. They're basically supportive, but with this undercurrent of almost hostile suspicion. And they all say to me, hey, this is good, dude, but why are you doing this? Why are you going into this weird kind of self-denial and puritanism when you never really had any kind of crash? And so I'm left with this question. Am I pretending to have a problem? Or are my friends pretending not to have a problem? I really don't know. If you see me after the show, let's discuss.
That's the top story.